Everyone talks about summer like it's supposed to be carefree. But if this season brings up money stress, body stress, family stress, or social stress, that's real too. Growth therapy can help with that. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person visits, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage by state and insurance plan.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Welcome, America. How are you? It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, happy to have you. I should hit straight to the news, but I want to say this out of the gate. Just bear with me here for a second. I am sorry on Friday, you guys were stuck with the best of. We got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to leave Oklahoma City. The storm was not a problem. The tropical storm was not a problem. The plane broke. We got on the plane. They had a hydraulic leak. We deboarded. Delta got somebody in there to fix the hydraulic leak. We got back on the plane, and then all the hydraulic fluid poured out of the plane, and they realized they needed parts that had to be flown in from Atlanta. So we were off the plane, and the best they could do was get me on a 1 p.m. flight. That became a 2 p.m. Central flight, so a 3 p.m. Eastern flight. We tried every one of the guest hosts that we have to see if they could rush in, and everybody was either sick kids or doctor's appointments. So y'all were stuck with the best of on Friday. It was not the tropical storm, ironically. And I thought, I should go back to Freedom 96.9, do the show, and get back to the airport. And they're like, Mr. Erickson, the only flight you can get on is the 1 p.m. flight. You're either staying in Oklahoma City or you're getting on that plane. So I got on that plane and went home. It was a wild time getting home on Friday. One day I shall fly private, but can't afford it at this point. We got to get to some of the news. I want to actually start. We'll get to Iran later. We've talked enough about Iran. I want to begin with the Democrats are running a campaign under the radar, and this is my attempt to raise the alarm to Republicans. On Thursday night in Oklahoma City, I had dinner with a friend of mine who is highly plugged into Republican politics, and he was saying he is just pounding his fist on the table, beating his head on the wall, trying to raise the alarm that he knows what's going on. So this friend of mine runs it's not quite a polling company. He used to be a great pollster, and he does great focus grouping still, but one of the things he does is his company pulls in all the social media feeds from Twitter, from TikTok, from Facebook, from Instagram, from Snapchat. He pulls every bit of data in, for people in political forums and comments and things like that, and he can analyze it, use AI, and he can analyze what's going on in the world to see where trend lines are. And what he says is they can actually do polling from this data to figure out if someone's being talked about positively or negatively. And for now several election cycles in a row, they have enough data to correlate that it's very good data to try to show people where the country is headed, what strategies are being deployed, who's ahead, who's behind, who's winning, who's losing. And this data has shown him the Democrats are running a campaign underground that the Republican Party is not really paying attention to. Let me step back and paint the scene for you. In 2018, with Donald Trump in the White House for the first term, Democrats had a 10 to 12 point generic ballot advantage. The Republicans knew a blue wave was coming. In 2022, the Republicans had about a 7-point advantage until August of 22. In August of 22, after Roe v. Wade had died, the Democratic counterwave began building, and a lot of strategists were warning Republicans that, hey, this isn't going to be as good as you thought it was going to be. The Democratic conversations about crazy right-wingers tied to MAGA after January 6th and the Roe v. Wade backlash is coming, and it's going to mitigate your wave. What Republicans did instead was they produced a bunch of partisan polls that skewed the averages to suggest that, yeah, the Republican wave was still coming. And a lot of us, myself included, thought there was still going to be a wave. And it turned out, if you just paid attention to the media polling, and of course Republicans say, you can't pay attention to the media polls, they're biased against us. And look, they are getting rid of what we know is going to be a red wave. All the Republican pollsters are showing the red wave. Well, it turned out we got played by the Republican pollsters. The media pollsters got it right. The New York Times in a poll nailed the 22 election. The Republicans still won, just not nearly as big as they thought they were going to win. And the big issues were the Democrats successfully flagging that Republicans were too crazy, pro-Trump, MAGA, a threat to democracy people, and two, the backlash over Roe v. Wade, the abortion issue, galvanized single women to turn out and vote, and their beta males. Right now, the Democrats are about 4 points ahead. In 2018, it was 10 to 12. Right now, it's 3 to 4. That's not a wave. To break even in the popular vote, Democrats need to be 4 points ahead. Because remember, Republicans now do have a very slight advantage on the in redistricting. So Democrats need to do well. The Democrats had been at an 8 to 9 point rally, but they've now gone down to 3 to 4 points. Why? The Democrats have nominated a bunch of creeps and weirdos. Tallarico in Texas, Plattner in Maine, the Al-Qaeda volunteer in New Jersey, the Hamas sympathizer in Michigan, probably going to be their nominee. They've recruited a bunch of far-left wackadoos who hate this country. You all know Eli Mistel. Eli Mistel, he's the black guy on MSNBC with the giant gray or white afro. He is super progressive. Doesn't really add much to the conversation, but he's a far left nut job. Someone sent me a screenshot the other day. Now I need to go make sure this is true as I bring it up. But someone suggests, yes, it's true. Eli Mistel, I hope Iran wins at the World Cup. You got that? He's rooting for a terrorist nation that wants to kill Americans, that has killed Americans, and he's doing it because he hates Trump. He doesn't like the country if he's not in charge of it. He wants Iran to do well. These are the sorts of people now leading the Democratic Party, and it's caused Americans to be skewed against them. And so if you run a national campaign against Donald Trump, well, you may not like Donald Trump, but you really hate the Democrats. So the Democrats have had to come up with something else, and they've gone back to the Tip O'Neill philosophy of all politics is local. So how is that playing out? And this is what my friend is he's raising the alarm to Republicans that, guys, we got to respond to this. This is a problem. And the Republicans want to keep the campaign nationalized while behind the scenes, Democrats are making it local. Now, you don't know this. You don't know this because it's not covered on Fox. It's not covered on CNN. It's not even covered on MSNBC. Everything there is a national campaign. It is Trump or not Trump. How are you going to vote? But Democrats locally running for congressional districts are doing something under the radar that's not cropping up in Fox. It's not cropping up on Newsmax. It's not even cropping up on CNN or MS Now. Have you lost a hospital in your congressional district? A lot of hospitals have closed in the last number of years, particularly rural hospitals are closing. Democrats in those congressional districts that are swing districts that have some rural voters, remember now, what does the data show us? That non-college educated or blue-collar voters have swung against the president. Men have turned against the president, and it's all about the economy. It's the economy, stupid. So Democrats are now targeting voters in these districts and saying, hey, did your local hospital close in the past year? It's because of the president's tax cuts. They cut funding for rural hospitals. Hey, did your local business go out of business? The business that you shop at, it's gone out of business. It's because of the president's tariffs. Are you paying more now for beef at the grocery store? Well, it's because of the president's tariffs. Never mind. It's not actually. It's not, but they're saying it's the president's tariffs. So while nationally the Democrats and Republicans are running this big, it's got to be, we got to stop Trump, he's a threat to democracy campaign, that's the national picture, but that's not actually what's happening in the ground. In the various swing districts around the country, in Iowa, in Texas, in Florida, in the Carolinas, North Carolina in particular, they're running these campaigns to say, hey, you just lost your local hospital. You lost your local hospital because your Republican congressman sided with Donald Trump and cut funding for the local hospital in the president's tax cuts. So you technically have more money in your pocket, but now you don't have a hospital. Your local business, it closed up shop. Do you know why? Because the cost of aluminum steel is up 50%. Because the president said tariffs would work to bring business back to America. And instead, this business in your district that employed people in your district is out of business because of the tariffs. All politics is local. And the Democrats, under the radar, using third-party funds for these super PAC funded ads, they're going all in. It's not about the Democratic Congress or Democratic candidate. It's about the Republican congressman voting to kill the local hospital and kill the local jobs. Republicans, you need to pay attention to this. Nationally, you see, the Democratic Party is out of money. Republicans have something like $150 million in the bank, and the Democratic National Committee has like negative $35 million in the bank. The Democratic Party doesn't have money, so they are relying on their outside special interest groups to run this campaign. And the outside special interest groups have embraced the Tip O'Neill all politics is local mantra, and they are specifically targeting swing districts with messages that are hyper local. You live in Sacramento, California, you could not care less about the rural hospital in North Carolina. It doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form. So your local news and your national news, they're not going to tell you about the story. But if you live in a suburban district that stretches from outside Charlotte, North Carolina, out into rural North Carolina, and that local hospital is gone, and now people have to commute over an hour to the hospital instead of going to the one in their backyard, they care greatly about that hospital. And the Democrats are targeting them with specific messages about how their local Republican congressman killed that hospital with the Trump tax cuts. And Trump's refusal to fix the health care, and Donald Trump's tariffs, and Donald Trump's policy of this, and Donald Trump's policy of that. They're tying it directly to the Republican congressman supporting the president's policies, and it is sailing under the radar. This buddy of mine looks at social media trends and looks at all the social media, looks at Facebook, that's where the boomers are, looks at Twitter, that's where the right wing is, looks at Blue Sky, that's where the left wing is, looks at Instagram, that's where a lot of people are, looks at Snapchat, that's where the young people are, looks at TikTok, that's where the very young and the very old are. And he sees the Democratic messages pouring through social media influencers, pouring through streaming ad campaigns, mail pieces. All this is that they're coming to people's mailboxes, coming to people's phones, coming to people's TVs, and it is Congressman X voted for the Trump tax cut, and it gutted money for the local hospital in order to give the rich a break. And the Republicans aren't even responding. The Republicans aren't even aware that it's happening. When you're at a 4-point generic ballot and more people hate you than they hate the president, you got to find a way to mitigate the damage. And the way the Democrats are mitigating the damage is to focus locally. to try to not do a nationalized election, because all the talking heads out there are like, hey, the Democrats are running a national election. It is us versus the authoritarian Donald Trump, and it's not working. And that's what the Democratic Party is doing. That's not what the Democratic super PACs are doing. The Democratic super PACs are going in hyper local ad campaigns that the rest of us don't know about unless we live in that congressional district. And it could potentially pay some dividends. It could cause enough angst that voters don't go vote Democrat. They just stay home, and the Democratic voters show up. Remember, Democrats don't need to turn out in a wave. They just need to convince Trump supporters he's not on the ballot, and this guy's wrecking the economy. Just don't go vote. And their don't go vote strategy could be effective. So, I'm kind of a sleep snob. I change out my bed mattress less than 8 years in regularly. I'm on, I guess, my third or fourth mattress, and I finally discovered Brooklyn Bedding. I didn't want a pure foam mattress. Online there's foam mattresses. I'm a heavy guy. I sink into them. I want the coils as well. And Brooklyn Bedding, well, they've got the king size, the queen size. They got the twin. They've got the made in USA with high quality materials mattress that's going to give you a great night's sleep. Don't underrate your sleep. Walk 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day, eat well, and sleep. Sleep is part of actually having healthy habits and getting great night's sleep. Go to brooklynbedding.com. Use my promo code Eric at checkout. Get 30% off site-wide. The offer is not available anywhere else. That's brooklynbedding.com. Promo code Eric, E-R-I-C-K, for 30% off site-wide. Support the show. Let them know that we sent you to check out brooklynbedding.com. The promo code's my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be happy to have you. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, is out of office now.
And when I leave the biggest job in the country, I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife, Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad, and being the best dad I can to my beautiful children, who are my pride and my joy. Thank you very much.
That's Starmer. He is out because new guy, he was the mayor of Manchester, just got elected to Parliament and came in saying he had the votes to oust Starmer. Now, this is the most interesting part of this, is there has not been a British prime minister to leave office at the end of a term since, I think, 2015 with David Cameron. They have just the rollover of British prime ministers before elections has been deeply destabilizing. That country could have been the Singapore of Europe after Brexit. Instead, they decided, instead of deregulating and cutting taxes, to raise taxes and regulate the snot out of everything. And now British citizens are coming to the United States and realizing that the poorest of Americans are richer than middle-class Britons. It's wild to see just how poor that nation has become in the last 20 years. It used to have a higher GDP than Mississippi, and now Mississippi outperforms most of Great Britain. It's saddening to me, as someone who's a fan of Great Britain, spent a lot of time there as a kid, to watch that nation just not only embrace decline, but have the political elite of both sides of the country embrace the decline of that country. In some local councils now, they ban the display of the English flag on government property. They view it as the English flag. In England, they view it as a symbol of racism. It is a bunch of rich, elite white people who have been poisoned by intersectionality, among other things. It's just absolutely insane to watch what has happened to that country. It's very sad, actually, to see what's happened to that country. And a lot of the British people are embracing it as well. They fear the minorities, immigrants who have taken over cities. They have apologized for and covered up the rape gangs that they all know is happening. It's pathetic to watch. It's essentially a country committing suicide. Just wild and shameful. Now, Let me tell you about Swiss America. Given what's happening with gold and commodity prices and oil right now, given the Iran deal, you want to keep your eye on this stuff, and they can help keep you educated at Swiss America. If you go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric today, you can get their Secret War on Cash report, SwissAmerica.com/Eric. You can sign up today with Swiss America, and you can start learning about the Secret War on Cash, how the government's trying to steer your spending. Not only that, you can also get the latest breaking news on commodities and gold, precious metals, global currencies, and the BRIC nations to help with your investment decisions. You can get that on the news and views tabs at SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Sign up with Swiss America today, and you'll be in the know ahead of your friends and get that Secret War on Cash report completely free from Swiss America and see how the government's trying to steer you away from using your paper currency, your crypto, your precious metals towards plastic so they can monitor your spending and control your spending, among other things. When we come back, Jon Ossoff, the Democratic senator from Georgia, took to a pulpit in a church on a Sunday to blast his opponent. If the Republicans did this, you and I know what would happen, but some want it to happen, and I'll explain why. Hello, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Delighted to have you with me. After I was on the road for most of last week, I got home on Friday night late. And the only thing I wanted to do, we had a house to myself. My wife and kids had gone to my in-laws for Father's Day weekend, which I was totally fine with. I wanted a quiet house. I got in my shower, and I almost didn't leave. It was nice hotels these days, they just don't have great water pressure. I got great water pressure. I stayed in there. Thanks to Renee, I had hot water forever. You can too, with a tankless water heater from Renee. And right now you get a $500 rebate if you purchase and install by the end of this month. So time is running out, people. You go to TalkingTankless.com, TalkingTankless.com, click on the rebate button, put in your information, and you can get a $500 rebate from Renee. You'll click the Eric Erickson rebate after you put in your information, and then put in my first name, Eric, ERICK, because it's only for you guys. That's why it's password protected with my first name, Eric. Remember, it's CK, ERICK. And then you go back to TalkingTankless.com and find someone to install it, a certified professional to install it. Y'all, you never run out of hot water. I took my shower. When I got home, I stood in my shower in that hot water. Gosh, I was probably in there for 40 minutes. It was fantastic. Oh, I never wanted to get out. I had a shower beer and everything. I just stood in there and relaxed after a week of travel. All you got to do, go to TalkingTankless.com, and you too can never run out of hot water. Jon Ossoff is the Democratic senator from the state of Georgia. He is running against now Mike Collins, the congressman from Georgia, who will be his opposition. Democrats very often politicize. By the way, I need to warn you, I'm about to go where many hosts dare not go. And some of you are going to scream racism. And I'm not being racist, but I am telling you hard truths that you're not going to like. Jon Ossoff went to a church and stood in the pulpit on a Sunday, the Lord's Day, and attacked his opponent. This is Jon Ossoff.
Because the hatred that Mike Collins promotes is a relic of the bad old days.
Right.
Georgia's spirit of tolerance will overwhelm and defeat bigotry.
Amen.
And our defense of voting rights will be.
He essentially attacked Mike Collins as a segregationist and a racist to a black church on a Sunday. And many of you will scream, where is the IRS? Well, the Trump IRS has largely dialed down enforcement of the no politics from the pulpit rule. So the IRS right now can't go after him because the Trump administration's precedent on politics from pulpits. And a Democrat obviously would not. This has been going on for a very long time in black churches around the country, the politicization. of the black church, particularly on a Sunday, with Democratic politicians. Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, John Ossoff. It's a long line of Democratic candidates who go into pulpits in black churches on Sunday, eviscerate their opponents with explicitly political speeches. And everybody's like, oh, that's what the black church does. There are now people on the right, the so-called Christian nationalists, who want to do the same thing. They want to turn Sunday sermons into politics. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there were right-wing calls that if your pastor doesn't explicitly preach about Charlie Kirk on Sunday, you might be in a woke church, which is nonsense. But there are people on the right who want to do exactly what Ossoff is doing. By the way, and this is where some of you are going to get mad at me. The rate of fatherlessness in the black community it's a crisis. The abortion rate in the black community is a crisis. Black on black crime is a crisis. On the south side of Chicago, every day someone gets shot and killed, sometimes multiple people shot and killed in the black community. There is greater poverty in the black community, the collapse of the family in the black community. And you know what they say, the excuse that you get from the white politicians who come into the pulpits on Sunday is that, well, we need reparations. We need reparations. It's all because of slavery. It's all because of racism. It's all because of other people's fault. You know what you're less likely to hear in the black church on a Sunday? The gospel. You're way more likely to hear a political sermon in a black church on Sunday and not the salvific message of a saving gospel of Jesus Christ. And guess what? Look at the collapse of family in the black community. Look at the crime in black neighborhoods. Look at all those things. And what they would have you say is that, hey, look, this is a systemic problem of racism in the United States, as opposed to the black churches became hubs of politics and failed to share the gospel message and lift people out of their sins and towards Christ. But no, you're a racist if you point that out. Remember, every time there's mass killings on the south side of Chicago and a white Republican says this is a problem, what do the black politicians say? You're not in our community. This isn't for you to talk about. And then they never talk about it. They go into a black church on a Sunday and have a political sermon with a Democratic politician. I'm sorry if I'm making you mad, but you know darn well I'm telling you the truth. And John Ossoff can go into a black church on Sunday and take over the pulpit and have an explicitly political message to a congregation that should be in there hearing a gospel message about Jesus, and they're not, except it's a twisted Jesus to conform to their politics. In the same way, there are a bunch of people on the right now called Christian nationalists, and they want to do this. They want to turn their pulpits into a political message on Sunday. In the 1960s and 70s, really going back early to the beginning of the 1900s with the Prohibition movement, it was the progressive movement that co-opted churches and started preaching a social gospel to bring heaven to earth today. And what happened to all those progressive churches? They are in collapse and decline. Same thing's going to happen with the Christian nationalist churches as they turn church sermons into politics instead of actually a gospel message. Why? Because on the left and now some on the right, they want to use the gospel message to change society. They want to use the gospel of Jesus Christ to promote social change. And what they fail to realize is that the gospel message is not about your society. It's not about your politics. It's not about your nation. It's about your salvation, and the change of culture in society is a byproduct of the gospel message, not the product of the gospel message. And if you actually want to change what's happening in some of these communities around the country, if you get these black preachers to stop inviting in the white politicians to smear the Republicans and actually get them to learn about the Bible, the literal word of God, and preach the gospel message, you would be surprised at the revolutionary transforming power of the gospel in these communities. I'm sorry, but to say that our country's past sins are to blame for the plight of black Americans today, yes, they are the only class of people who in the 17 and 1800s were slaves in this country, but there were lots of immigrants to this country in the 18 and 1900s who were treated horribly by this nation, including Irish and Italian immigrants who aren't now demanding reparations and for past slights of their behavior. And the black population of this country continues to say, but slavery, but slavery, but slavery. It is the year of our Lord 2026. You've had a black president. You've had a black vice president. You've had multiple black secretaries of state. You've had real meaningful progress in this country. And the black pastors and the black politicians and the white Democratic politicians want you aggrieved and claiming that you can't get ahead in life because of something that happened that a whole lot of white people died on a battlefield to end. But give us reparations. And now you got the white people on the right doing the exact same thing. The Christian nationalists are, hey, let's get in the pulpit and make it all about politics. We're going to change the Republican Party, and we're going to make the gospel message a political message. And if you're not on our side, you are definitely evil because you're not with us. And you know what's actually going to happen? What's actually going to happen is you're going to see the collapse of the churches that do it. They're all a bunch of weirdos generally anyway. And you're going to see a collapse of those churches. If you're going to church on Sunday and your pastor is standing in the pulpit affirming your politics, you need to leave and go to a church where they're not preaching politics on Sunday. They're actually preaching of the Bible. The Bible does not care about your politics. And if you think it does, you've been brainwashed in a failed church. The Bible does not care about your politics. Your politics should conform to your faith, not your faith to your politics. And if you can't go to church on Sunday and think, I stand for something with my political party and I'm not sure it aligns to the Bible. If you can't go to church, if you go to church every Sunday and think, my politics align perfectly with Scripture, the Republican Party and all of its leaders were perfectly biblically sound, you are in a cult. You're not in a real church. And this is happening on both sides. And people on the right, you need to avoid doing this. Look at what's happened to those progressive churches. Look at what happens to the black community. And look at the prominent black pastors out there who are leaders in communities where the communities are collapsing. And what does the church leader do? He makes it all about politics and partisan public policy. What can we get from government as opposed to what can the gospel give to you? A transforming life through Christ. It's a real failure here. As to the particular message, it's pretty clear that Jon Ossoff is going to try to rally black voters to his side by smearing Mike Collins as a segregationist. Why? Because Jon Ossoff is Jewish and a lot of the black community is not necessarily aligned with supporting a Jewish politician, even in the state of Georgia. That's why he's decided to ride Keisha Lance Bottom's coattail. She's the former mayor of Atlanta who couldn't get reelected, who the Democrats decided, thankfully for the GOP, that she should be their nominee for governor in Georgia. The problem is that they thought that Burt Jones would become the gubernatorial nominee for Georgia Republicans. Burt Jones, very much tied to Donald Trump, was indicted by the prosecutor in Fulton County for his stolen elector participation. That case was thrown out because that prosecutor had participated in a fundraiser for his opponent. But they're not getting that guy. They're getting Rick Jackson. Rick Jackson, for those of you nationally who do not know, Rick Jackson is a self-made billionaire. He grew up in poverty, ran away from home, got placed in foster care, ran away, got placed in foster care, finally ran away, started a business, and is now a billionaire. He is the American dream. And so the Democrats thought that they were going to run against Burt Jones. Instead, they're running against Rick Jackson. And what they're doing right now is they're attacking his wealth, the wealth of a self-made man who had run away from home and gone into foster care. They think that they can attack the American dream in him, and they can scream racism and segregation against Mike Collins. It is the standard Democratic play of just scream racism enough. The problem is you scream racism enough, real racism gets overshadowed. That's why what's happening in Britain right now couldn't necessarily happen here. You know, the rape gang situation in Great Britain, the politicians and the police didn't want to be labeled racist. They were so scared of being labeled racist that they ignored and covered up the rape gangs because it was all Muslim men who were doing the raping of these young white British women. In this country, the Democrats have used racism every which way. I mean, if the wind blows the wrong way, it's racist. If the grass dies in the yard, it's racist. If your food shows up 15 minutes late, it's racist. Democrats, everything is racism in this country, and it's become such a weakened word now that you don't have to fear the Democrats labeling you a racist these days, by and large, because they label anything that doesn't help the Democrats a racist. And so they'll go into this church and they'll try to whip people into a frenzy by screaming racism at the other side. And it may work for people in that congregation, but it's not going to work well because, well, people kind of understand it's what the Democrats do. But I find it very notable again. This is another example of a white politician who will go into a black church on a Sunday and vilify the opposition, not a gospel message at all. And then we turn around and we look at the collapse of the black community and we wonder, why is the black community collapsed the way it is, with the lack of fathers in homes, the jobless rate, education issues, violence, gangs, drugs, all of that. Why? And they say, well, it's because of something that happened over 150 years ago that we've never quite gotten over, as opposed to the black church abdicated preaching the gospel in favor of a political message. And the families that are in those communities, they're not getting the message, the bread of life that they need. They're getting a political message to stay aggrieved and feel like perpetual victims. And John Ossoff, of course, is willing to play into that. So, I'm kind of a sleep snob. I change out my bed mattress less than 8 years in. Regularly, I'm on, I guess, my third or fourth mattress, and I finally discovered Brooklyn Bedding. I didn't want a pure foam mattress. Online there's foam mattresses. I'm a heavy guy. I sink into them. I want the coils as well. And Brooklyn Bedding, well, they've got the king size, the queen size. They got the twin. They've got the made in USA with high-quality materials mattress that's going to give you a great night's sleep. Don't underrate your sleep. Walk 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day, eat well, and sleep. Sleep is part of actually having healthy habits and getting great night's sleep. Go to brooklynbedding.com. Use my promo code Eric at checkout. Get 30% off site-wide. The offer is not available anywhere else. That's brooklynbedding.com. Promo code Eric, E-R-I-C-K, for 30% off site-wide. Support the show. Let them know that we sent you to check out brooklynbedding.com. The promo code's my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today is a day for gremlins. My call screener can't answer calls at the moment because he does so from his home and the power has gone out. And our show is transmitted from my flagship station in Atlanta out to Denver, Colorado, to Westwood One, which is then distributed across the country to all of our affiliates. And something happened in Denver that broke the distribution facility. So a lot of you are tuning in now, and I'm live. You're like, what was going on? Well, it was the gremlins in the machine that could not be helped in the distribution process. But credit to them, they scrambled and have been working tirelessly to get us back up and running nationwide. So everybody nationwide can now get my dulcet tones, in time for me to turn my attention to the Iran deal at the top of the next hour, where we've got some new news happening with their ability to sell oil. Right now, I need to tell you, this program is brought to you by Van Allen Golf. If you go to vanallengolf.com or text golf to 33777, Father's Day is over, but it's still a great gift for anybody you know, male or female, who loves to play golf. vanallengolf.com or text golf to 33777. Well, it turns out that more women are probably coming out about Graham Plattner. That's right. One of his consultants was asked about it on television and really dodged the question over what if more women come out, and he's been pretty open about his failures as a person. What about if more women come out? Yeah, he's been pretty clear about his failures as a person. They are hitching their wagon, this guy in Maine. And I don't know that it's going to turn out well for the Democrats. In fact, I've said before, and I did go back and look. So Susan Collins has been in D.C. for about 20 years, and she's never won a public opinion poll. Going back to her first election, she was a surprise win in Maine. She was behind in all the public opinion polling. That's been consistent the whole way through. And yet she's won every election. I suspect Susan Collins is also going to win this election. So the Democrats want to ride or die with Graham Plattner. They may just go off the cliff with him. We will see. Now, the phone number, let me go on and give it to you, 877-973-7425. Power should be restored here shortly for you so you can queue up your phone calls. When we come back, a lot of people are saying there's no coherence in the Iran deal, that there's no coherence. It makes no sense. Why are we doing it? We are today waiving oil sanctions on Iran. They will get up to $10 billion over the next 60 days. The State Department says that Iran prioritizes funding of terrorism with its oil revenue. So we can suspect they'll be funding terrorism. So why would we go along with this? Well, there is a coherence in the American plan, and it actually makes a lot of sense. The reason we would do this bad deal with Iran, if you understand it properly, it actually makes a lot of sense. And so I want to explain it to you when we come back as to why exactly it is we are engaged in a deal with Iran, where a lot of people look at it and say this is a terrible deal that puts Iran in a strong position. Why would we do it? Well, there is a why. But first, I want to tell you about Vision Computers. If you're buying a computer, you're building a computer, Vision Computers, they can take care of you. They can be your IT support. In many cases, they can even remote in to fix your computer. Now, look, I've talked about them buying and building computers for your home. Let me talk about your office. If you build a computer or buy a computer with Vision Computers, you get their tech support for free, so you don't have to have managed IT. You bought the computers from Vision, you're going to get their IT support with it. If you just want the IT support, if you want your employees to be great at their jobs and not also have to be the IT support, well, Vision can take over, so your employees, their uptime for their job is great and their downtime for their computers is limited, because Vision Computer will be the computer where they get a phone call in 15 seconds or less. Vision Computers can take care of them. Someone will answer the phone, an actual human being, not, my friends, an AI chatbot, but a human being, take care of your computer needs. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. Tell them Eric sent you, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. When we come back, let me explain how this Iran deal makes sense in an odd sort of way.